Um, I hope you see the PowerPoint.
Yes, sir.
Right. In the last class, I was talking about the different environmental impacts created due to human beings. We will finish today our discussion on this part, right? Particularly the different environmental impacts that we people are mostly responsible, right, for all these impacts. I talked about how population is growing around the world and having different, impacts. So I hope you remember all this stuff and different, projections. Population by 2021, 100, at the end of the century. And starting from the very beginning of the civilization, how human interventions have been, damaging the environment. And I talked about deforestation, grassland wetland destruction, and particularly through agricultural activities. Yes, around the world, agriculture is dominating, right? Because you know most of the land masses are being used currently for agricultural purposes. Agriculture means modified landscape, modified, right? Agriculture depends or relies on selected crops, but we said nature loves diversity. Now, when you cultivate only a few crops, right? Because cropping, your agricultural practices also influence on habitat for other living organisms. And in order to enhance agricultural productions, we give input, external input, fertilizer, herbicide, pesticides are also used. Irrigation is also dependent. So for all these interventions, activities, we are accelerating environmental damage. Okay, oceans are becoming highly contaminated, and oceanic resources are overexploited, overharvested. Even we control the stream's natural flow of water, rivers, for different purposes like flood control, hydropower. Okay. There are many examples of large hydro dams, large hydropower in the world. I talked about Three Gorges Dam in China, producing 18,000 megawatt of electricity. Okay, the different impacts that are created due to controlling all these streams are soil salinization, waterlogging, water loss, so on and so forth. There is always a question to the world community whether we can return the rivers to their natural flow. River Ganges, you saw all the photographs, how we damaged all these rivers, the transboundary rivers, mighty rivers, the River Ganges, Sitaram, Indonesia, Huangho, Marilao. I talked about the story of the Cuyahoga River, Cleveland, catching fire because the river caught fire. Very interesting statement. If you fall into the Cuyahoga River, you won't drown, right? You will decompose. So just imagine the state of the river in the United States in 1960s. But there has been a drastic change in Europe and the United States. The river quality, they have been able to get their rivers, back, ecological processes back. A lot of the stories are there. You can also get to learn in the internet if you want. Urbanization is another one because it is also an indicator of development, right? The more and more, in future actually, more and more people will be living in the urban areas. That means bringing new different urban environmental issues, urban environmental challenges. Okay, a lot of examples are there. Dhaka, even if you compare, there's a very interesting book on Dhaka Nagari Itihash. If you go through all those books, you come to learn the changes that has been happening, even in our cities, even around the world. Big city like New York, even Tokyo, even Seoul. So these are all the effects of urbanization. The surface transformation, you have to convert actually rural landscape into urban. That means you have to cut down trees, you have to construct, paved highways and many things, right? Traffic congestion is very common. Urban heat island effect in the urban area, also pollution, air, water, even land, noise, right? I give examples of the urban slum dwellers, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, even Dhaka, Nairobi, and so on and so forth. Slums, nothing new to us. People are aware of existing state of Dhaka. Food system. So actually, for increasing population, we need to produce, it's an increasing amount of agricultural products, right, to feed the increasing population. So food production, food storage, food transportation, food processing, right? All these activities actually influence environment. Industrial development, right? Industries. There is a question in the bottom if you see, can we live without large-scale industries? Right? It's not really possible, right? But unfortunately, environmental pollution, in environmental pollution, industries are responsible mostly, right? 60% responsibility goes to the industries of all sort of environmental pollution. 60% responsibility, industries. So the simple answer is the current world cannot go a single day without large-scale industries, right? Bangladesh, if you consider our country, we always talk about increasing industrialization, right? Our government also gives a lot of incentives those who invest in industrialization, right? That means we are still, we are developing, right? We are urbanizing, we are industrializing, right? We don't have remarkable industries here in our country, right? But we see a lot of industries, in Dhaka, around Dhaka, on the banks of rivers, the highways, right? But Bangladesh is not an industrialized country, right? We know how much we are contaminating, damaging, right, through industries. Even though Bangladesh is not considered an industrialized country. If you go to China, you will understand the level of industrialization, right? Simply industrialization in booming, urban booming, urbanization booming, industrialization booming is taking place there. All right, that means without industries, without large-scale industries, the civilization cannot really go, cannot run, right? But as I said, 60% responsibility of environmental pollution goes to the industries. Because raw materials, resources, right, for industries. You need raw materials, you need energy, okay, and then you will have your products, right? So in one hand, you are exploiting natural resources, which is really scarce, maybe forest resources, maybe agroforestry, agro products. Energy is also, if it is, fossil fuels, right? It is also limited, exhaustible. So you see, stock, that means, all you use in your industries, they are all depleted very fast. And in lieu, you are also producing some burdens, wastes, right? Air, for example, liquid wastes, solid wastes, right? You are doing emissions, for example. So through exploitation of energy and raw materials, you are exploiting natural resources in one hand, and on the other hand, you are also producing enormous emission burdens. So you are through your industries, we are simply damaging our environment. All industries need raw materials. I already mentioned forest-based raw materials. For example, in Bangladesh, in the past, we used to use the Sundarbans, forest resources for paper making. In the Khulna newsprint, there was a newsprint paper mill. When I was a student in the high school, we used to write in newspaper. It's called newspaper. I'm sure it's already out of order. It's not, produced anymore. Okay, so then transportation systems, right? Because if you consider roads, highways, railroads, even aircrafts, every day millions of aircrafts are running, even during this pandemic, corona, right? If you search in the internet, there is a website called flight trackers. You see millions of flights are operating in domestic and international, even during the COVID, right? So they are using all fossil fuels, burning, and then emitting carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, damaging the environment, right? And in order to construct your highways, you have to deforest, for example, clear forests, cut down trees. You have to disturb the natural flow of water, right? This way, that way. It's all about damaging the environment. High-tech entertainment devices, right? Computers, television, mobile phones, and all we are continuously using, discarding. Every year, new stuff is coming, and we simply discard the old ones. And have we ever thought about all this, wastes? Where are they going? Right? Millions of tons of e-wastes, electronic wastes. Right? Where are they going? We are simply discarding elsewhere sometimes. The statistics, you see, take a look. 250 million televisions, which are cell phones, computers, monitors discarded, only in the United States. But to some extent, all these wastes are going to the environment. Okay, basically, two major functions are performed by environment. Two major functions. One function is to provide human beings natural resources, and another important function of the environment is to accommodate wastes. Right, because the wastes that we produce, that we create, for example, are simply sometimes discarded to the environment, but elsewhere. It's for example, on land, on water, but that is part of the environment. Okay, and it is environment is automatically, naturally, through natural processes, decompose, right? The wastes. It's called assimilation, accommodating, assimilating the wastes. If the capacity of the environment, exceed is let's say, if the amount of wastes is really higher, okay, than the capacity of the ecosystem.
Just a moment.
Then your environment will be degraded. Now, for example, if you take take very easy example from rural areas. Now, what the rural people do, normally they dispose, wastes to the, elsewhere, actually, let's say. Now, even dung, they leave it actually somewhere else, close to their home. But over time, you see how it is decomposed naturally, right? And sometimes, even to the water bodies that throw the rivers, right? But if you continuously throw, right, at some point, the capacity of all these, natural systems, rivers and lands, right, will be lost. Now, for example, you have a river close to your house, close to a village. Every day, for example, 100 kg of wastes are dumped into the river. So the river can accommodate at least 100 kg, right? Because it's through ecological process, fish and all living organisms, they can digest. But if you continuously increase, for example, the amount of wastes, 100, 200, 300 every day, then at some point, the river certainly loses its capacity. I hope you understand the point. And you see, even we know organic compounds, organic matters are important for, natural processes, but sometimes the level of organic compounds if it is increased, then it's also damaging, to the environment. I hope you got the point. So e-waste is it's a big challenge continuously, and we are simply discarding. Now, if you consider yourself, what you are doing with your all the electronic goods, right? Every day we are disposing, right? Because we need new stuff, and I have heard. I mean, the different electronic stuff that we use can be made forever. Actually, I mean, for long lasting, but normally they are not produced in that way, so that their business can continue, right? For example, the laptop, your desktop. If you use it for 2 years, 3 years, you have to discard it, right? So it is out of order. It gets out of order. Now, for example, it loses its compatibility with softwares, and because softwares are updated continuously, it's a kind of business. You understand what I mean? Now, therefore, you need to discard enormous wastes every year, every day, every month, but ultimately damaging your environment. Warfare and weapon system. The world has enough weapons to kill the world population many times over, right? So weapons, the first world countries, even atomic, right? Weapons. We know about all this, very modern, high tech, for killing people, right? Only for killing people. The atom bomb used in Japan, we know Second World War even. And even at least 10 countries have nuclear weapons, nuclear weapons that can destroy the earth, several times, right? It will happen in the future. Okay, but the results, consequences, but you see in the past, normally all the influential countries used to experiment the nuclear weapons in the ocean normally, right? Just think about it, how damaging it was actually. Energy consumption, another one, energy consumption is increasing simply at a high pace, right? Due to increasing demand. You can consider our country, although we are struggling with energy power. A very poor country, now we produce only around 11,000 megawatt, but we need around at least 20,000 megawatt. But we are using, around the world, we are using actually fossilized fuels, right? So petroleum maybe accomplish exhausted, by 2050, right? Those statistics. Many things. I mean, particularly natural gas will also be exhausted. Coal in Bangladesh, natural gas is to be exhausted by 2030 in Bangladesh. Natural gas. What will happen then? And the replacement will be coal. Coal can continue for another, let's say, 30 years. Then, so this is how, by burning all these fossilized fuels, we are emitting poisonous gases, greenhouse gases as well. See, world's top 20 richest countries consume 80% of world's natural gas, 65% of world's oil, and 50% of world's coal. Top 20 richest country. Now, starting from USA, you consider European countries, even Russia, even China. Okay, all the environmental effects include air, water pollution, acid rain, coal burning, reduces toxic metals like mercury, zinc, lead, arsenic, etc. Nuclear, I have already mentioned nuclear energy. The recent disaster that took place due to nuclear explosion in Japan in 2011, Fukushima disaster. I remember I went there, I attended a conference in Tokyo in around 2012, 13 perhaps, yeah. They were working, so scientists were working to decommission the nuclear power plants in Japan. right? Because they constructed all the nuclear power plants because you need enormous power supply, which is only possible through nuclear power plants. But unfortunately, due to tsunami, you know, massive explosion took place in Fukushima. 10,000 people died in Japan. Just imagine. 10,000, at least 100,000 people were displaced. And they cannot come back to their home in at least 30 years. Right? And they're doing a lot of research now to mitigate, to reduce the level of radioactive cesium. Right? Because cesium was exposed to Suez and Suez system and land in Fukushima disaster. But Bangladesh, is constructing, right, a nuclear plant, nuclear-based electricity power plant, and the Rupur of Vishuddhi. Yeah, actually, we don't have any power, and we need enormous power because our, demand is increasing at least 10% per year. It's growth, demand growth. So we're simply struggling with power supply. Right, so this way that way you need power. Otherwise, all your production systems, everything will be collapsed. Right, you need electricity. There's no alternative of having electricity. So Fukushima nuclear, already Germany closing nuclear power plants. Many countries around the world, first world countries, they are going to shut down their nuclear power plants gradually. They are going to switch to renewable energy sources, renewable energy. Solar energy or geothermal heat or wind energy, etc. They've got targets, many countries, Austria, Germany, the European countries, they have got good estimates as well. Okay, some thoughts for discussion. The history of human progress is a history of manipulating and destroying the natural environment. Human progress, right? The civilization. Once you've got the test of civilization, modern technology, you cannot really go back. You have to continuously do development. So your history of progress is basically history of manipulating and damaging the natural environment. So you've done enormous damage to the environment, whichever which are irreversible, permanent. Human population is increasing. Demands for everything will increase. This will exert an increasing pressure on our limited and shrinking resources. So how to keep a balance between economic development and saving the environment? It's a big challenge. In one hand, and saving the environment on the other hand. All right. Can we return our rivers to nature? Can we return our rivers to nature? Now, when you go to Europe, you will see how the rivers are, even Asian countries like Japan and China, how the rivers are controlled. Right? If I ask you a question, why the old world civilizations went extinct? পুরাতন সভ্যতাগুলা কিভাবে বিলুপ্ত হয়ে গেছে? Basically, two processes, two ways. One is, drought. There was no water for food production. Another one was overflow of water, floods. Right? So these are basically the two impacts of flood and drought, right, in the extinction of all the old world civilization. But over time, human beings have learned how to control the rivers. If you go to Europe, you see United States, China, Japan, Thailand. The river's quality is all right because they are maintaining ecological process and the water quality of the rivers, wetlands. But the rivers have lost their lives, right? They cannot erode. They cannot go anywhere they like, right? Because they are highly controlled and huge construction, heavy constructions are made throughout the river courses. Go there and see, right? So you will then remember my words. There will need demolition or demotion of all the dams and closing irrigation canals. Is that possible? Can we return the farmlands to nature, to forest, grasslands, and wetlands? Can we return our cities, shopping malls, and industrial plants to the former natural landscape? Question. It's not possible. Can we stop using fossil fuels? If so, how soon? They'll need to stop using all the autos, trains, industries, farm machines, etc. Poor countries need cheap fossil fuels. Poor countries like ours. Okay, can organic farming feed at the moment is not 7-8 billion plus population, right? So they lack adequate food. How about the world population? They have no access to clean water, education, healthcare, basic necessities of life. Okay, now again the question is: have UN and rich countries done anything at the scale of the IPCC to alleviate the problems of the world's poor? Do you know IPCC? IPCC.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
ওর নাম কি?
শাহিনুর রহমান।
যাকে আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি না তার উত্তর আমি নিব না। I cannot take your answer. Right? Because you can search in the internet and you tell me. Right? So those who are visible on video, I will only take their responses. What do you know about IPCC? Those who are visible, you can answer. Tanjila, Habibur Rahman, Shaila Akhtar, Yusuf Sharif, Shamima Akhtar. So you can. Anyway, so actually IPCC was established in 1988 to monitor the climate changes, the climatic condition changes and climatic conditions in the world. So I hope this is all about the different environmental problems. I hope you have had some ideas about the human progress, right? Through industrialization, urbanization, through all our interventions, okay? The way we intend to improve our standard of living, through all these efforts, endeavors, interventions, how we are actually damaging the environment. Well, I hope you have had some ideas. Now let us start discussing other topics. Okay, now the major concepts, scope, and approaches to environmental studies or environmental management. Okay, let's say environmental studies and environmental management here. Okay, so environmental management basically is an approach, right? It goes beyond natural resources management to encompass the political and social as well as natural environment. And normally, natural resource management focuses only on the management of natural entities, but environmental management actually is beyond natural resource management, including the political and social aspects. Now, for example, even how the political aspects, governance influences environmental issues, environmental components, even social as well. Now, human beings, we people, our society, how we desire, our aspirations, even the governance, government. Governance means the different institutions. Formulation of environmentally sound development strategies. Objective: formulate environmentally sound development strategy. Environmentally sound. Environmentally sound means, again, development will certainly be carried out, but it has to be environment friendly. That means you cannot really impact the environment. There are definitions as well with references: the process of allocating natural artificial resources so as to make optimum use of the environment. Optimum use means the best use. Okay? It is best use, not maximum, not minimum. Optimum means best use, wise use, in satisfying basic human needs, minimum and more if possible on sustainable basis. Right? On a sustainable basis. That means you have to allow the ecological processes to continue, and at the same time you can exploit the environmental components. So environmental management is also a decision-making process. Decision-making. Now, for example, you are constructing a nuclear power plant. You are constructing coal-based power plant in the coastal areas, in Rampal and elsewhere. So it is actually basically decision-making. It's also environmental management. Right? Decision-making. Regulating the impact of anthropogenic activities. How to regulate human interventions, human-made activities on the environment. It should be regulated in such a manner that the capacity of the environment to sustain human development will not be impaired, will not be lost. Ultimately, to sustain human development, the development that we do for ourselves. Okay, so it's a kind of authoritarian approach. I mentioned it in the beginning of the class course, that we human beings, it's called egocentric. It's authoritarian, right? We consider our development, human development, wider human environment. That's for decision. We have to take decision on how we regulate the impact of our activities on the environment. Okay, the common description of a process undertaken by professionals with natural science, social science, less commonly an engineering law. Sometimes nowadays engineering is also involved, because engineers normally do not have a strong social and environmental background. For this reason, they are also becoming or given the backgrounds of environment and social science. Now, normally in the first world countries in engineering, you have to study at least one third of social science. And for example, engineering activities for home, for society, right? It's not just constructing a bridge over the river. You have to think many perspectives, whether how people are impacted, benefited, environmental components are there, right? It's not just constructing a building or roads and highways. For season nowadays, degrees on environmental engineering, even water resource engineering, coastal engineering, even engineers produced only for coastal areas. They will be expert in the coastal area. Coastal environments. So you have to study coastal ecological processes, the existing resources, human demands, and many things. And while doing all the development activities, construction, they have to take all this into consideration. Okay, so general description process undertaken by professionals in natural science, social science, less commonly engineering, law, design background, tackling problems of human-altered environment on an interdisciplinary basis from a quantitative or futuristic viewpoint. Interdisciplinary. Okay, these are the different components, goals of SDGs. right? Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2030, seeking the best possible environmental option to promote sustainable development. So environmental management, I mean, is basically the best possible environmental option to promote sustainability. No poverty, no hunger. That means social development. You see, social development is there, environment is there, economy is there, SDGs, social development goals. You can simply count. One means no poverty means social, right? To zero hunger is also human, right? Poverty alleviation. Good health is social. Quality education is a social. Gender equality is also social. Clean water and sanitation is environment. Okay, then affordable and clean energy is also environment. Decent work and economic growth. Economy is there. Industry is economy. Reduced inequality, social. Sustainable cities, again, and communities, social, partly. I mean, yeah, partly economic. Responsible consumption and production. It is both social and environment. Climate action, again, environment. You see how all the goals, SDGs, are are related with social, economic, and environmental perspectives. The control of all human activities which have a significant impact upon the environment. Control again, regulating, right? So what we are doing, we cannot really do whatever we like. Now we cannot discard, dispose anything that we like to the environment. For example, what the industry is doing, through industrial processes, wastewater is released, dumped into surface water. So that should not be allowed, should be regulated, strictly regulated. I talked about, the initiation and the laws, for example, acts, even in the United States, NEPA, National Environment Protection Act. I will also discuss later, while talking on Bangladesh. We have also got many, policies, laws, okay, on environmental issues. I have got a book with me. If you take a look to this book, you'll be surprised to see. Let me show you. It will be interesting to you. Let's take a look to the book. I hope you see it. It's such a thick book, right? Laws regulating environment in Bangladesh. Have you seen it? 1172 pages. 1172 pages. Now let me give you, share with you one, let's say, a statement of Dr. Kamal Hossain, right? So there was an article written by Professor Asif Nazrul in the Delhi Pratham Alo that they were going to Maldives, right, to work on their constitution. And in the plane, Professor Asif Nazrul wrote that they were going through the constitution of Maldives. Professor Asif Nazrul said to Dr. Kamal Hossain, Maldives has got very good constitution. Dr. Kamal Hossain commented, it is all about, the written document. It's all in black and white, but nothing is being implemented, right? So I hope you got the message that I want to share with you, right? It's like the Constitution of Maldives. So it's a huge book, more than 1,000 pages, but you know how much of it is being implemented, right, here in our country. All right, so let me stop here today. It is already 11:15. I have another class because 30 minutes late. In the next week, let us discuss the remaining parts, theory, concept. I have to take more time here in this part, actually. So you will start collecting the books and you start going through. Those of you who are serious, as I said, there are many books on environmental management, right? Even environmental aspects of our country. Okay, so meanwhile, what I can do is, a second, Rajiv, department এ আছে? হ্যাঁ, ঠিক। Okay. তোমরা একটা কাজ করতে পারো, at the moment you can start working on assignment. সেটা হলো যে group করে like other previous years, হ্যাঁ অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট করতে পারো একটা। এখন তো ইউনিভার্সিটি খুলে দিবে, আই হোপ তাড়াতাড়ি। এই তো অনেক কাজ করতে পারবা। ফোর্থ ইয়ার তো অনেক বড় ইয়ার, you have to do a lot of works. তো অ্যাসাইনমেন্টের আমাদের কোর্সের স্কোপ সেখানে, হ্যাঁ যেমন রামপাল পাওয়ার প্ল্যান, এনভায়রনমেন্টাল ইস্যু, বাংলাদেশ আসপেক্ট করতে পারে, নিউক্লিয়ার পাওয়ার প্ল্যান, অনেক আসপেক্ট আছে কাজ করে। সেগুলো একটু ইনভেস্টিগেট করে পেপার টেপার, হ্যাঁ একটা অ্যাসাইনমেন্ট প্রিপেয়ার করলাম। ঠিক আছে, সো ইন দি কামিং উইক I'll be, I hope you can prepare your groups, share with me the group members, with your group leaders, that I can talk to them, prepare one assignment, I mean outline of an assignment. Please start doing. Okay, কোনো কথা আছে, কারো কোশ্চেন আছে কোনো?
স্যার আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
আসসালাম।
স্যার আমাদের ভার্সিটি কি খুলে দিবে? মানে মার্চে খোলার কথা, কিন্তু তখন তো স্যার শুধু যাদের পরীক্ষা, মানে অনার্স ফাইনাল ইয়ারের যাদের পরীক্ষা আর মাস্টার্সের যাদের পরীক্ষা তাদের জন্য খুলবে। স্যার আমাদের তো পরীক্ষা না, আমরা কি থাকতে
এর
পারবো?
বেশি
আমাদের
আমি জানি না আসলে, হ্যাঁ যাদের, তোমরা তো ফাইনাল ইয়ার, তো তোমরা হয়তো তোমাদেরকে তো তোমরাই তো এখন ইউ শুড বি অ্যালাউড টু, তাই না, এন্টার ইনটু দ্য ইউনিভার্সিটি, তোমরাই তো অ্যালাউড হবে, ইউ শুড বি।
জি স্যার, কিন্তু ওখানে বলা হয়েছে যে স্যার যে যাদের পরীক্ষা শুধু তারাই, কিন্তু আমাদের তো স্যার ল্যাব বাকি বা যেটাই হোক, আমাদের তো ল্যাব ক্লাসগুলো না করে আমরা পরীক্ষায় বসতে পারবো না। এই জন্য কি আমাদের অ্যালাউ করবে কিনা, আমরা স্যার এটা নিয়ে একটু ইয়েতে আছি।
আমরা অবশ্য কিছু জানি না, হ্যাঁ দেখা যাক, নিশ্চয়ই বলবে কোন কাদেরকে অ্যালাউ করা হবে হলে। হ্যাঁ প্রথমে থেকে ওয়ার্ম আপ করছে যে ফাইনাল ইয়ারে যারা আছে পরীক্ষা তাদেরকে দিয়ে শুরু, কিছুদিনের মধ্যে হয়তো পরে ইউনিভার্সিটি খুলে দিবে, তাই না, এটা যেহেতু স্টার্টিং শুরু, তো হল খোলা মানে হলো যে ইউনিভার্সিটি খোলার, আমরা একেবারে কনফার্ম কিছু আমাদেরকেও বলা হয়নি যে খুলবে কিনা। আমি মিটিংটা ছিলাম না, কাউন্সিল মিটিং যেটা হয়ে গেল দুদিন আগে, ওখানে সিদ্ধান্ত ছিল। তো এটা
আমাদের মানে ফ্যাকাল্টি গুলা বা যেহেতু স্যার মানে সায়েন্সের কারোরই হয়তো পরীক্ষা এখন হবে না স্যার, যদি আমাদের ডিন স্যাররা যদি বা আপনারা যদি স্যার রিকোয়েস্ট করতেন যে আমাদের হয়তো এদের জন্য অ্যাটলিস্ট ল্যাব ক্লাস গুলো তো করতে হবে, এদের জন্য যে যাতে খুলে দেয় বা এরা যেন হলে থাকতে পারে, কাজগুলো যেন মানে অফলাইনেও করতে পারে, তাহলে স্যার আমরা পরীক্ষা দিতে পারি।
তুমি না বললেও তোমার থেকে তাদের চিন্তা বেশি, বুঝছো, যারা ফাইনাল ইয়ার মানে কি, এখন তো পরীক্ষা যে মাসটা শুরু হয়ে গেছে অলরেডি, তো এটা ইউনিভার্সিটি চিন্তা আছে যে কত তাড়াতাড়ি ইউনিভার্সিটি খুলবে। হ্যাঁ এটা আমাদের বলা না বলা তোমার টেনশনের কিছু নেই, তাই না। ইউনিভার্সিটি, আমরা তো রেগুলার ইউনিভার্সিটি আসছি, ডিপার্টমেন্টে আসছে খোলাই, রেজিস্টার বিল্ডিং ফুল টাইম খোলা। হ্যাঁ এখন আমরা মিটিং সিটিং সবই করছি সামনাসামনি। এখন ইউনিভার্সিটি হল খোলা দেওয়া মানে হলে আস্তে আস্তে এটা খুলে, একবারে খুলছে না, তাই না, এটা বুঝতেই পারো। আমাদের ইউনিভার্সিটি ক্লাব খুলছে তাও কয়েক মাস আগে, স্বাস্থ্যবিধি করছে, কে স্বাস্থ্যবিধি মানে, তাই না, এটাকে সামনে রাখতে হবে। এখন ইউনিভার্সিটি সরাসরি বলবে না যে সব খুলে দিলাম, তাইলে তো ক্রিটিসাইজ করবে সবাই, তাই না, এই খুলে দিল এখানে করোনা। আস্তে আস্তে খুলবে এবং না খোলার কিছু নেই, কাজেই তোমাদের টেনশনের কিছু নেই। ইউনিভার্সিটি খুলে দিলে, হল খুলে দেওয়া মানে আস্তে আস্তে তো জানবা, তাই না। দেখা যাক, একটু ওয়েট করো আর এক মাস, তাই না, 13 তারিখ তো বলেছে, দেখা যাক। আই হোপ কিছু স্বাভাবিক হয়ে যাবে, হ্যাঁ মার্চ অনওয়ার্ড, আই হোপ।
স্যার আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
হ্যাঁ
স্যার আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
সালাম, বলো কি বলছো।
স্যার আমরা যারা ঢাকার বাইরে আছি তারা তো এখন সেমিনার লাইব্রেরিতে যাওয়া সম্ভব হচ্ছে না। স্যার আমাদের কি কোনো সফট কপি ওই এনভায়রনমেন্টাল ম্যানেজমেন্ট কোর্সের জন্য প্রোভাইড করা সম্ভব, যেটা আমরা ফলো করতে পারি? 1-1.5 মাসে হয়তো খুলবে না আমাদের জন্য।
ঠিক আছে, তোমরা নিজেরাও ঘাটাঘাটি করো। হ্যাঁ এনভায়রনমেন্টাল ম্যানেজমেন্টের তো কোনো ম্যাটেরিয়ালের অভাব নেই। তোমরা যেটা তোমাদের খালি প্রয়োজন, হ্যাঁ, নিজেরা একটু কষ্ট করা, যে কষ্ট তোমরা আসলে করতে চাও না। তোমরা বাসায় বসে বসে সব খালি ঘুমাইতেছ আর খাইতেছ, হ্যাঁ, এটাই তোমাদের অ্যাক্টিভিটি। বুঝতে পারছো? আমাদের দেশের মানুষের সমস্যা কি, যে সবকিছু হা করে থাকবে, আকাশ থেকে পড়ে যাবে। হ্যাঁ, ব্যাপারটা এরকম। আমি তোমাদেরকে দেখাচ্ছি যে ঘরে বসে কত কিছু শিখতে পারো। বাট আনফর্চুনেটলি পিপল ডোন্ট ডু দ্যাট। আমি ওপেন করছি, দাঁড়ান। showing you. এই দেখো, এখানে তুমি যদি গুগল স্কলার এখানে সার্চ করো, হ্যাঁ, এখানে তুমি যদি সিম্পলি ব্রাউজ হোয়াট ইউ ওয়ান্ট টু নো, আসলে হ্যাঁ, এখানে তুমি টাইপ করো কি দরকার, বসো না, শেষ। এনভায়রনমেন্টাল, হ্যাঁ, তুমি যে কোনো টপিক এখানে সার্চ হিয়ার এন্ড ইউ গেট অল দ্য স্টাফ। দেখো সব পেপার চলে আসবে, তাই না? পিডিএফ ইউ ক্যান ডাউনলোড ফ্রি পিডিএফস হিয়ার। নিজের একটু কষ্ট করতে হবে। সবাই মনে করো স্যাররা সব দিয়ে দিবে, হ্যাঁ, এখন তো কোনো কিছু থেমে নাই, তাই না? এভরিথিং ইজ ওপেন। যে দরকার একটু নিজের সদিচ্ছা, পড়াশোনা করার ইচ্ছা, তাহলেই পাবা, তাই না? এগুলা এখান থেকে ঘাটাঘাটি করে সব পাবো, কি ম্যাটেরিয়াল তোমার দরকার, তাই না? ইউ গেট অল দ্য স্টাফ হিয়ার ইন দি ওয়েবসাইট। গুগল স্কলারে যাও, অন্যান্য সাইট সেগুলো সেখানে দেখো। ঠিক আছে, খুব কুইক রোল কল একটু।
স্যার স্যার এই যে মানে দ্রুত রোল কল করতে গিয়ে অনেকে আর কি রোল এই সময় নেটের প্রবলেমের কারণে তারা হচ্ছে ঠিক মতো দিতে পারে না। সেক্ষেত্রে স্যার ওরা হচ্ছে নিয়ে বলতেছে যে আমরা মানে কি করব।
কিছু করার নাই, যারা মিস করবে মিস, অসুবিধা নেই, এটা তো তোমার ব্যর্থতা।
স্যার আমি হচ্ছে
তোমরা
ওরা যেহেতু
তোমরা তো কেউ ভিজিবল থাকো না বেশিরভাগই, তোমরা ঘুরতে পেরেছো, ঘুমাইছো, কেউ হাসাহাসি করছো। কালকে আমি রাতে মাস্টার্সের একটা ক্লাস নিলাম, লাস্ট ক্লাস রিভিউ, দেখি দুই বান্ধবী খুব হাসাহাসি করছে, মাঝে ভিডিও অন করতেছে। হ্যাঁ, আই ডিডন্ট মেনশন এনিথিং, কিছু বললাম না তাদেরকে, হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু এটা আমরা জানি। এখন যে বলছে স্যার নেটওয়ার্ক ছিল না, ইন্টারনেট সমস্যা, নেট প্রবলেম, আমি জানি না, এটা তোমার ব্যর্থতা, আমার কিছু করার নেই, বুঝতে পারছো? বাট আমি মনে করি অধিকাংশ তোমাদের কথা আমি শুনি, রেসপন্স যারা করো, বুঝতে পারছো? আই ডোন্ট থিঙ্ক যে তোমরা একেবারে রিমার্কেবল নাম্বার এটা মিস করো, আই ডোন্ট বিলিভ ইট। ওকে, তানভীর আহমেদ।
Yes, sir.
আসফাত জলি।
স্যার।
আনাক খান রিয়েল।
Yes, sir.
সুমি আক্তার।
প্রেজেন্ট স্যার।
হাসান।
Yes, sir.
হোসেন।
Yes, sir.
আবুল হোসেন টিটু। দেখছো তো, ওয়ালিদের কথা আগে শুনতাম না, এখন কিন্তু জোরে জোরে শুনলাম। তার মানে কি, আগে সব অ্যাবসেন্ট করে দিয়েছে, এখন ঠিকই শোনা যায়। নাজমুস সাকিব।
Yes, sir.
পূজা দে। খন্দকার।
Yes, sir.
রোকেয়া তন্নি। ইউসুফ শরীফ।
Present, sir.
শুভ তামিম।
Yes, sir.
আবরিন আক্তার।
Present, sir.
লুবনা আক্তার।
প্রেজেন্ট স্যার।
তারনুম।
Yes, sir.
হাসনান হোসেন।
Present, sir.
আনিস ফাতেমা।
ইয়েস স্যার।
মনীষা বিশ্বাস। কার জায়গায় আবার রেসপন্স করে কে জানি না। সমস্যা চলে আসছে। তানভীর মোহাম্মদ ফারহান।
Yes, sir.
মাহিন মেহনাজ।
ইয়েস স্যার।